it's Midori. I am a forensic scientist from the world of mysteries. And welcome back to After Dinner Mystery Readings. Man, remember back when I used to do these on like a weekly basis? That was nice. Whatever happened to that? Tonight's story is, as always, coming to us courtesy of DWaM, DWaM, at DWaM22 on Twitter. The only author I have ever found the guts to actually ask permission to use their material, which, given that US copyright law extends for well over 70 years in most practical lived experience cases, is basically the entirety of all mystery fiction. That story was uploaded on New Year's Day of this year, and it goes by the title of Don't Solve My Murder. But like the don't is written in a little parenthesis, sort of like, you know, the titles of the first three build of Evangelion movies, yeah, I don't know how to explain this to you, y'all can see it for yourselves. Today's story is a fairly conventional mystery story with an almost aggressively conventional setup. The rules of the game being murder, will be laid out very explicitly, and we need merely understand who will play them most efficiently. Cosmic Nana has redeemed an obligatory head pat. It's quite obnoxious seeing as how I kind of need my eyes to read this very screen. But you know what? Who amongst us has not experienced suffering for their arts? So, without further ado, we shall now begin. Don't solve my murder. Chapter 1. Don't talk about the Black House. Part 1. They said that in the basement of the Black House lied a portal to hell. It was a hole about 200 feet deep. Nobody could explain how it came to be. Prior to the discovery, the house had been rotting away as a bank property for about 100 years or so. Yet the hole itself, it was determined, was fairly recent. It was unlikely it could have occurred naturally. So, it must have been man-made. But who would have snuck into an abandoned house and dug a hole? And why? With questions like that, it shouldn't be hard to see how the Black House became an attraction, or how it came to the attention of my high school's paranormal club. To be clear, the club itself was a joke. Monday, the club's founder and lead would pick a nearby haunted attraction to visit for the weekend. Go, glance at it, and then spend the rest of the weekend getting wasted. With Monday being something of a childhood friend, I was part of the club since its inception. Black House was way out of our usual locale and price range. But seeing as we were in our last year of high school, though, we figured we could afford to splurge a bit. Taking a tour of the place basically meant renting it out for a couple of days, so we had the accommodations sorted out. Getting drunk in a haunted mansion warranted a place on anyone's bucket list, surely. We can't break anything, though, Monday told us time and time again. She probably knew our drunk selves wouldn't manage to resist either way, and she at least felt like she did her due diligence. The other members of the club were Adrian and Esther. Adrian was the closest thing we had to a believer. He'd read the Book of Lies, he knew all about magic, and genuinely believed that he could communicate with his grandma's ghost. That last bit is how he justified his drinking. Grandma's messed up in the head, he'd say. Esther's interest in the paranormal was also vested. but only for the purposes of making fun of it. She loved the concept of magicians debunking frauds and saw herself as something of the next Darren Brown. Mind you, she never showed us any tricks, was fairly bad at getting people to do what she wanted, and I suspected had no clue who Darren Brown was supposed to be. We all liked each other well enough, though. Regardless of the paranormal, we were all hedonists at heart. We liked drinking. We liked hooking up with each other. We liked new experiences. But God almighty, we did not like that house. Oh, it lived up to its name, sure. It was certainly black. Black walls, black roof tiles, black doors, black window frames, black fence. Even the artificial grass surrounding it turned sickly gray the closer you got to the house entrance. I'm sure it's just like that on the outside, Monday chuckled. It wasn't. Black wallpaper, black doors, black stairs, black furniture, black bed sheets, black floor tiles, black plates, black forks, black fridge, black washing machine, black painting frames, containing nothing but canvases painted all black, of course. Black, 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 black. This is cool. I think, Esther said. I sniffed. Not really. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, Esther sighed. Like, Adrian crossed his arms. The point of a haunted mansion is that it's supposed to be lived in, right? This is just tacky. Monday shrugged. Well, we're not here for the haunted experience anyway. I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is pretty rad. I'm never in a place like this again, so why not enjoy it? Just don't break anything, I grinned. Yeah, we got it. The house had 2 floors and, obviously, the basement. The upper floor had the 2 bedrooms where we haphazardly left our stuff in. We'd figure out who slept where later. It didn't really matter. I'm gonna go take a look, Monday yawned, descending into the basement. We followed. The basement itself was barren, with the exception of the hole. It was, in my mind, obviously man-made, albeit crudely. Caretakers had made no effort to cordon it off. The hole was just there for all to see. And fall into. Adrian shone a flashlight down it. We couldn't see the bottom. Satan! Esther shouted into it. You down there? Are you sure taunting the devil's our best play? I asked. Esther clenched her fists. Just let him try showing his face. I'll slap the shit out of him. Adrian clicked his tongue. Grandma's not gonna like this. I'll slap the shit out of her, too. Monday said nothing, merely staring down into the hole. You good? I asked. Don't open it, she said, not lifting her gaze. But what? Door. Her voice lowered, almost to a whisper. Don't open it. Guy on the other side wants to kill you. Don't open it. No matter what, don't open it. I blinked. What? She blinked as well, meeting my baffled stare. What? What did you say? Nothing. I looked over to Adrian and Esther. Neither of them had been paying attention. Never mind, I guess. Didn't seem like something worth fretting over. I'd probably just misheard it. The rest of the day passed without any notable incidents. We'd eventually grown accustomed to this bizarre, void-like space. And once you turned off the lights, we realized the place truly became just that. A void. I'd never experienced anything like that. Shapes disappeared. No matter how hard you peered into the darkness, nothing stuck out. All you were left to do was wander, deprived of everything but sound and touch and smell. Is this how it felt? Be truly blind? Once the alcohol set in, the strange sensation became unbearable. It was as if my consciousness was drifting in nothingness. An astronaut lost in space. Was I standing? Was I lying down? Was I even awake? Who made that sound? Was it me? Did I imagine it? At some point I must have screamed. Someone laughed. I don't know who. I started laughing too. Someone clung to me. Hey, Monday whispered in my ear. Hey. I could barely get the words out. She ran her hand across my cheek. I saw something. I looked down the hole. Yeah? I think we'll all die, she whispered. Except you. You'll live. Then you'll go on to do something horrible. And you'll love it. You'll love it so much. It'll be horrible. You'll become something horrible. I don't... Before that happens, why don't you die with us? I said nothing. What could I have said? Should I have mocked her? Should I have comforted her? Should I have tried listening to what she was saying a little bit harder? I don't know. I only know what I did. I embraced her in the darkness. Didn't say anything weird after that. And that was good enough for me. Chapter 2. Don't meet Sam. I hadn't seen Sam since June. While I can't say we'd ever been particularly close, I could tell something was different. How she kept glancing out the cafe window. The way she nervously played with a packet of sugar. The aimless small talk. The fact that she called me up to begin with. How's uni going? She asked, digging her nail into the sugar packet. Fine. God willing, I'd have a diploma in hand next year. Good, she cleared her throat. Good, I mean, how are you doing with your loans? I blinked. My loans? Your student loans. I mean, yeah, I mean, you know. It's probably a lot at this point, right? She bit her lower lip, glancing down to the cup of tea before her. You have plans how you're to pay those off? No, I was the one glancing out our booth window. Well, because, you know, it's tough these days. Getting a job as a lit major? English, I corrected her. I glanced at her reflection in the window. I'm an English major. She sighed. Yeah, but still, it's tough, right? I mean, most people go into STEM these days. I don't know if that's... She snapped her fingers, something looking up. And you actually did comp sci originally, right? Where was this going? Sure. Yeah. Probably didn't help with the debt, alright? Sure, I guess. Still facing her only through the reflection, my hand searched the table for my cup of coffee. I failed to find it. What if I told you... She paused, choosing her words carefully now. That there's a way to pay it all off. And not only that, to have enough money to basically be set for life. I grinned. Sure. Have your dad be Lloyd Stevens. Lloyd Stevens. The neo-industrial tycoon. The mega genius whose company had discovered a new element in the periodic table. Man whose other company was revolutionizing AI. Man whose other company was doing consulting for just about every company with too much money to waste on consultants. The man whose youngest daughter was sitting in a booth in some random university cafe, talking to me. Sam straightened her posture. Sorry, I wasn't trying to goad you or anything. Nah, no, I chuckled. I didn't mean anything by it. Sure you did. And it's not like you're wrong. She put her hands behind her head, scratching. Dad pretty much takes care of everything. She scratched her nose, reaching for the crumpled sugar packet with her other hand. Well, used to. That's sort of what I wanted to talk to you about. She looked me in the eye. I hear you're a pretty smart person. I cocked my head. I'd check your sources. No, don't be modest. This is important, okay? You got tangled up in a murder case a few years back, didn't you? The Black House. I don't want to talk about that. She nodded. That's fine. I don't really want to talk about it either, but you solved it, right? I grimaced. I didn't. Oh, no need to be modest. I'm not. I can't imagine being in that situation. Not just surviving, but actually stopping the killer. That's smart in my book. Not smart enough to have stopped the murders themselves. And I didn't stop the killer. Where did you hear that? She waved her hand. Again, beside the point. You solved it. That makes you a good candidate. That's not... Why would I waste my breath? I crossed my arms. I think you need to tell me why you called today. She bit her lip again. I told you. It's about Dad. He's dying. I hadn't seen that one coming. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it cancer? She shook her head. No. Actually, he's perfectly healthy. But he's still dying. He's actually going to die this Friday. Someone's going to kill him. I leaned across the table. What? What are you saying? Who? Once more, her nail dug deep within the packet. Finally, it broke, spilling sugar onto the table. Hopefully, she said. Me. Chapter 3. Don't be a good millionaire. A week prior, Lloyd. Good old Lloyd. A week prior, Lloyd Stevens gathered his wife, his brother, and his 2 children in the living room of their penthouse. I'm bored of life, so I've decided to end it, he said. I'm not sure I've really earned my wealth, but I know none of you have. So I'll give you a chance. Whoever kills me next Friday will be given everything I own. The rest of you will be left with nothing. You're free to refuse, of course, but if all of you refuse, then I'll simply donate all of my wealth to charity and throw myself off the balcony. Simple as that. After an hour of initial outcries and protests, Lloyd's crowd had finally settled down to where he was able to continue explaining the conditions of his bizarre last will and testament. I've had my lawyers draw up a document through which we, as a family, agree to the murder, including myself. I'm told the entire thing can be presented as a form of assisted suicide. What condition are we easing your suffering from? Asked Jennifer, the wife. Lloyd shrugged, checking the document he just presented to the audience. Clinical depression, according to this. Orion, the brother, rose from his seat. Lloyd, if you're depressed, then this... No, you idiot, the millionaire sighed. I'm not depressed. I'm bored. Aren't you listening to what I'm saying? So, what? Elliot, the older child, rubbed his chin. Whoever stabs you first on Friday midnight wins? His father perked up. Oh, that'd make it a bit dull, don't you think? I actually figured we could make a game out of it. I'm going to be sick, Sam cried. As sick as I am of this whining, no doubt, the family head yawned. Let's drop this charade. I barely know any of you. You barely know me. I'm a convenience to you, just as you are to me. This has been a business arrangement. It's time to pick a new head of the company. You can either step up or get lost. The room fell into silence. Okay. Jennifer crossed her legs. What's the game? Lloyd explained the rules. His murder was to take place next Friday. The murder could only be committed between 8 and 10 p.m. During that time, Lloyd would stay in the penthouse in his study. He would not resist his attacker. Only one person besides Lloyd was allowed to be in the study at any given point in time. The entire penthouse was to be covered with cameras, live streaming the event to an associate of Lloyd's in Hong Kong. The associate would serve as a mediator and ensure everyone stuck to the rules. Prospective killers were not allowed to work together. This did not only refer to the execution of the murder plot itself, but any kind of sharing of the money after the fact. Only one person was to walk out rich. The rest were to be cast away into poverty. Lloyd would ensure this as a stipulation in his will. The main portion of the money would be delivered over a longer period of time, through a trust operated by his most trusted confidants. The trust would carefully track all transactions of the winner. If it was determined the winner had shared the fortune, the rest of the money would be forfeit. Prospective killers were not allowed to physically hurt each other in any way. Taking out the competition in such a manner was poor sportsmanship, to say the least. The winner would be the person who killed Lloyd, and could not be identified through the following investigation. Investigation? Elliot raised his brow. I don't think the cops will take too kindly to participating. Especially not after all the trouble we'll have to go through to explain how we're legally not accountable for, murdering you, Orion pointed out. I never said they'd be the one investigating, Lloyd now paced around the room. All that I was done in explaining the game. The issue with the rules as they are now is that they motivate you to kill me, but not to kill me well. Therefore, each would-be killer may extend an invitation to an acquaintance of theirs, and have them play the role of a detective. After 10 p.m., the suspects would leave, and the detectives would arrive to investigate the scene. The only information that would be given to them at that point would be the order in which people had walked in and out of the study. The detectives would not be allowed to tamper with the scene in any way. At 3 a.m., each detective would be given a chance to make a deduction, explaining the crime. They would do this in the study, alone, under the watchful eyes of Lloyd's associate. The detectives would be allowed to refuse to make a deduction. If a detective were to correctly deduce who the culprit was, and the culprit was not the person they were representing, the person they were representing would get half of everything, while the other half going to charity. In this case, the killer would lose and get nothing. If more than one detective were to correctly deduce who the culprit was, nobody would get any money. If the detective representing the culprit were to make any kind of deduction, the person they were representing automatically forfeits the right to the money. At that point, if exactly one detective did not correctly deduce the culprit, nobody would get any money. Once the results are decided, they cannot be overturned. God, Lloyd. Jennifer shook her head. In other words, Elliot said, following a long period of silence, there are 5 possible scenarios. 1. We can all refuse to kill you and end up with nothing. 2. One of us kills you and none of the detectives catch them. In that case, the killer wins. 3. One of us kills you and one detective catches them. In that case, the person the detective is representing wins and the killer loses no matter what their detective does. 4. One of us kills you and the killer's detective makes the mistake of making a deduction. In that case, the person the detective was representing loses, and the only way for someone to make money is if exactly one detective figures it out. 5. Finally, if one of us kills you and more than one detective catches them, we still lose everything. Pretty unforgiving, Elliot grinned. The murderer needs to be very careful to cover their tracks, Orion concluded. But the detectives need to be just as careful too, right? Sam pointed out. If the detective doesn't figure out that the person they're representing committed the murder, it could cost them everything. Well, the killer and the detective would probably need to agree in advance on some kind of a signal to leave at the crime scene, Elliot mused, before stopping himself short. Guess I shouldn't talk too much. We're all competitors now, aren't we? Challengers all exchanged a glance. Though his third wife, Jennifer, was no pushover, and she'd have killed you if you called her a trophy wife. The assertion that she hadn't earned Lloyd's wealth hurt her in a way she hadn't thought she was capable of hurting anymore. Prior to marrying Lloyd, she was a CFO as his firm's main branch. She worked hard. She worked diligently. She never allowed herself to make mistakes. That was what Lloyd had seen in her. At least what he said he'd seen in her. Now, all of a sudden, she was worthless? She, the person who was still carrying her weight the most? She, the person who was working around the clock to make sure the SEC didn't bring him down for insider trading? Well then, if he was begging to be killed, he was certainly going to get his wish. Ryan, on the other hand, was a bit of a freeloader. He didn't particularly mind admitting it. He'd withdrawn from his family shortly after his marriage, moving to the other side of the country to work as a banker. 2 years later, however, he came back crawling. His wife had disappeared and, due to a legal quagmire, all her money was in the hands of her family. They were not keen to give him a cent. He was worthless and he knew it. Nobody had ever quite understood why Lloyd had kept him around as long as he had, given his general reputation. This game was nothing short of a godsend to him. Elliot was the smartest person in the room, and he knew it well. Having graduated earlier in the year, he knew he could easily make do even without his father's money. But it wasn't about the money for him. It was about the thrill of the game. Part of him had likely suspected that the game was designed for him alone. His father had chosen him to take his place, and this was his final test. Sam, for her part, sat quietly. Between rage, greed, and ego, she believed her motivation was the most noble. Survival. She hadn't finished her studies. If Lloyd were to die now, she'd be in massive debt. Worse yet, she had no knowledge on how to truly function in society at large. Her mind was racing. Who could be her detective? Her ally? She was drawing a complete blank. That's all then, Lloyd declared. Any questions? Chapter 4. Don't run away. Yeah, if you had a question, I said, having listened to Sam's story. Are you serious? I am. Her look was grave, as was mine. This isn't funny, and I'm not laughing. You're going to kill your dad. Yes. And you want me to be your detective. Yeah. No, I said firmly. No. She seemed genuinely surprised. No. She cradled her cup of tea. I'll give you 5% of everything I get. So what? No. You imagine how much 5% is? Of Dad's entire wealth? Like, can you picture it? Because I don't think you're picturing it right if you are. We're talking millions. More than you'll ever see in your entire life for a couple of hours of work. You don't even have to do anything. You have to participate in murder. No, you don't. She put the cup back down, spilling some of the tea onto her shirt. I'm the one doing it. And even then, maybe I don't get a chance to. And Sam, for the love of... It's what he asked for anyway. Actually, no, he forced us into it. She sighed, visibly frustrated. I don't do this. I lose everything. My family loses everything. By the sound of it, your family loses everything, even if you win. She shook her head. You don't get it. I perfectly get it. You don't, she chuckled. Yeah, you really don't. Just like you don't get your own position here. How much this can do for you. Don't make this about me. Sitting here because of you. Or you, she sighed. I need your help. I want you to understand that's just as big of an opportunity for you as it is for me. I mean, I'm going through with it no matter what. It's up to you if you want to make your life better in the process. You're probably not aware just how much 5% here really is. The debt would go away. You can take your time getting a job. You can use the money to help other people who are in trouble. Hell, you don't even have to use the money. But you can have it. You can be safe. And if I actually kill him, you don't even have to do anything. 5% of the entire fortune. An empire. For doing nothing. Sam. He's still going to die. Even in the best world where we do the right thing and refuse, he'll still kill himself. It's his decision. It's not even a matter of good and evil. You want it to be, though. That he's the evil one. We're only doing what he wants. I stared at my cup of coffee. I don't even know you. But I know you're smart. And that's good enough for you, I asked. It's the only thing I can ask of you, she said. I got up. Please! 5%. Looked out the window. 5%. Lowballing Lloyd's fortune to have been $100 million. 5% became 5 million. How many people could make that in a year? How many people could make that in 10? I bit my lip. 5%. I sat back down. Chapter 5. Don't have a plan. The way I see it, Sam crossed her arms. Our best bet is probably poison, right? She was as candid as she was greedy. I was lagging behind on the candid bit, but not by much. Why? Well, I mean, think about it. The key piece of information is the order people walked into the study, right? So if someone just shows up and stabs him, then the last person to visit him is obviously the culprit. Okay, sure, but all we get is a list. You could be the first to get to his study and stab him. After that, Jennifer finds the body, screams, and runs away. Elliot hears a scream and goes to the study to see what happened. She smirked. Elliot wouldn't be that stupid. And Jennifer wouldn't have screamed. Besides the point, it's just a hypothetical scenario. And in it, the list of people entering would be Sam, Jennifer, Elliot. Who stabbed him? She took a sip of her second cup of tea. No, that's still terrible, actually. Because in that case, Jennifer gets half the money. I cocked my head. How? The moment Jennifer walks into the study, the only thing going through her head would be the fact that she failed to kill Dad. At that point, the only thing she cares about is making sure that her detective gets it right. So she'll do everything in her power to help him out the best she can. I raised my hand to my chin. Okay. I see. So, being in the study, she would take a piece of paper, write down "I didn't do it" on it, and hide it in a spot she and her detective had agreed to in advance. Sam nodded. And once her detective sees it, he'd realize that I must be the culprit. Precisely because of the order of people entering. Elliot would be doing the same thing, but his detective would be out of luck, since he'd have 2 suspects instead of 1. Okay. But in this scenario, the problem is that you're the first person recorded going in. What happens if the actual order had been Orion, you, Jennifer Elliot? You're right. In that case, it gets tricky to narrow it down. It'd be a guess. See? Which is why at least someone won't leave it up to chance. Let's say that someone was content with not killing Dad and just catching the killer. That's still a pretty big payday. So instead of doing anything to kill him, they do everything in their power to observe him, gather as much information for their detective as possible. And what's the best way to do that? Well, if it were me, I'd just stay put outside of the study. Whenever someone leaves, I'd go right in the study and check if Dad was still alive. If he wasn't, I'd know which person did it and report that to the detective. Simple as that. I looked out the window. I've given this a lot of thought, she continued. It's not just about killing Dad. It's about communicating with your detective in general. You need to be able to let your detective know you did do it as well, so they don't go and screw the whole thing up by running their mouth at theory time. She shifted in her seat. So a direct kill is probably a bad option. But in that case, I'd already realized, poison's probably an even worse one. She blinked. What do you mean? It solves everything. The only time I'd enter would be to apply the poison, and it'd be impossible to trace it back to me specifically based on the order of people coming and going. The strategy of camping outside of the study doesn't do anything for you anymore. So, say you poisoned your dad. If the poison is slow-acting, then yeah, sure, the order of entry doesn't matter. The thing I'm worried about is the possibility someone else came up with the exact same idea. If 2 people poison your dad, how do you know which poison is the one responsible for him actually dying? Even if you left a note for me saying I did it, that'd only tell me that you gave him the poison, not that you actually killed him. That means I can't be certain if I can rest easy or not. She clicked her tongue. But if we can't tell, would the officiator be able to? Given the lengths your dad's already gone, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a coroner on standby to serve as a tiebreaker if something like that happened. Sam's face twisted. I mean, if we use a poison that has some distinct symptoms, it still wouldn't guarantee anything. It might be visible symptoms, but if someone gave him cyanide 3 minutes before our poison after we finished him off, kill isn't ours, and the symptoms would lead me to believe something otherwise. Besides, depending on what kind of poison the other team's using, symptoms might not be as clear-cut as we'd like. So what am I supposed to do? Yes, an option is to not try to kill him at all and gamble on me to solve it, I suggested. At least then I'd know that you're innocent and we can focus our strategy around giving me the most information possible. Her reaction was swift. No. Why? I don't want half. You might need to settle for it either way, I pointed out. And I have to try. Sam, non-negotiable. Sorry. And you'll have to kill him with your own 2 hands. His poison won't work out. She rolled her eyes. We're only dismissing poison because we're worried someone else will do the same thing. If they're having this exact same conversation right now, they might be dismissing it for the exact same reason we are. And their conclusion will be that killing him directly will be the best option. So you'll show up, slip poison into his coffee or whatever, and it won't matter because right after, someone will stab him in the chest 2 minutes later. But I just explained to you that killing him directly ensures I get caught. Well, I shrugged, guess you can't kill him then. Not an option. And we'll have to figure out a way to get around that. Simple as that. It's getting a bit riled up now. I didn't mind that at all. How? Well, the problem's pretty straightforward. We always have the order of people entering, and we can always assume everyone has some way to communicate with their detectives. The person who enters right after the murder is more or less always guaranteed to win if they get the information back to their detective. So that'll have to be the crux. You're suggesting we sabotage them. I'm suggesting we point our focus at the right problem. That's all. No matter the method, what the others are doing, or might do, is always going to be a problem. All I'm saying is that it's the problem. I mean, she looked to the ceiling. Let's say that they agree to leave notes, right? If you're fast enough to the crime scene and just grab them before they have a chance to... We can't intercept the messages. I mean, I can't do it because if I took them, I'd be tampering with the crime scene, which detectives aren't allowed to do. More importantly, they won't be using notes. That was just an example. In practice, they'll always have a surefire way of getting in touch with their detective. What do you mean? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. They just need one of these. Anyone could just call their detective up 5 minutes before time is up and have an actual conversation. The rules say nothing about it. She gasped. Oh. Oh! Oh! But that makes it easy. Does it? Well, I guess it makes it easier for you and me to talk to each other, sure. But if we try to kill your dad directly, it's basically game over. We're not just talking about hastily written notes, but a full-on interview. We can't intercept that. And we can't tamper with it either. So you're basically saying it's impossible. Poison isn't a sure thing, and killing him directly can't be done because at least one person can figure it out in 2 seconds. Great. I didn't say that. You kinda did. I just laid out the problem. And where's the solution? In the rules, I told her. I don't know if that was the intention, but they're actually pretty lax. Misleading, but lax. What do you mean? The rules focus a lot on the study, on who goes in and out, only one person being allowed in. That makes you think that a person actually needs to go into the study to do the deed. But what if you don't? Right, poison. I shook my head. Again, we're talking about a direct kill. You have to make sure that he's dead and that you pulled it off on the spot. So, what, like a remote mechanism? A bomb? She chuckled. It's probably not a whole lot better than poison, honestly. But let's think about another rule now. The one that says you all leave at 10, just before the detectives arrive. Here's an odd point, though. Who says you can't leave earlier? She scratched the side of her head. Okay, you've lost me. Study is part of a penthouse. I imagine it has a window? She nodded. Yeah, sure. And I continued. I imagine your dad would be visible from that window. Pretty much. I mean, there aren't any curtains. Okay. Now I'm assuming there's a building nearby just as tall, if not taller, than yours. If I were to go to that building like that, there's a good chance I'd find one that I can see your dad's window from. She snapped her fingers. Alright, I'm seeing it. Regardless, I explained the scenario. You walk into your dad's study early in the night. You nonchalantly open the window. Since he won't resist, you might as well tell him what you plan to do, just to make sure he doesn't close it himself. Whoever's monitoring the study, let's assume there will be at least one person not interested in killing him themselves and really doing that. Now check up on him and make sure he's still alive. After that, you leave the building, go to the building across, and shoot him through the open window. And you wait for someone to find the body. At that point, you're in the clear, since at least one innocent person would have gone in after you, confirming he was still alive. That person's detective would then have to assume you were innocent, and the other detectives would have nothing to go on anyway. But you would still have some work to do. First, you'll need to wait for someone to find the body. If you can have a clear view of the study, I'll wait until you see someone entering yourself. This is important, because after you go back to the penthouse, you need to enter the study at least once to do some cover-up. Close up the window and add some ash around the bullet wound to make it look like a gunpowder burn. To make it look like he was shot in the study. As long as you do that after someone finds the body, the movement of the study will clear you of suspicion, since he won't be recorded as entering between the time he was last seen alive and the time he was definitely dead. She was nodding excitedly. Yeah, that's not gonna work, I admitted. What? I shrugged again. Sorry, I actually realized it while I was laying it out. First of all, you need to leave the penthouse undetected, which I'm pretty sure is easier said than done. Second, if you tampered with the scene after the murder, you'd be in a bit of a pickle if the first person to find the body checked it again after you tampered with it, and noticed something was different with the scene. But that's minor. Bigger problem is this. You basically just confirmed someone can see into your dad's study at all times. She froze. Wait, but then we have a problem. It's not just that anyone can come up with this murder plan. It's that anyone can monitor the scene at all times. Including the other detectives. I nodded. Which means if at least one other person has figured this out, they'll have their detective watching everything. And if I'm doing the same, that means two people will always know exactly what happened in that room. But then, nobody can win. I nodded. Exactly. But that's only if I kill him directly. If I poison him, think very carefully. If we've reached this conclusion, I'll bet you the others have reached it as well. No! She slammed her fist on the table. At some point, I have to be smarter. Well, I sighed. I don't think this is the point. But please, calm down and listen. Say you walked in and administered the poison. I see you doing it. The other detectives see you doing it. What happens? Remember the rules. They're lax. I flashed my phone again. Other detectives, she realized, would notify the others on what I'd done. Immediately. And then what? I goaded. Say I'm Orion. My detective just sent me a text saying he saw you drop something in your dad's coffee. Now what? Do I go in and put some cyanide on his pen or something? What if he never drinks the coffee? In that case, I'm the obvious culprit. Everyone saw me put the poison on the pen. What if he drinks the coffee? Well, that's fine, but we're back to the problem from before. Nobody can say for sure which of the two poisons really killed him, and my detective's in a jam. Is he supposed to make a deduction? Or not? So I get a clever idea. I'll pretend to put poison on his pen. That way I'll know for sure that I didn't do it and that your poison must have done it. But I'm counting on the fact that the others won't. In that case, you lose and I get half the money. Which is fine by me given these conditions. Now I'm Elliot. I have 2 texts from my detective that both you and Orion have put some kind of poison. He knows one is in the coffee, the other is probably on the pen. What's my strategy? Well, I've decided I'm also fine with half the money. So now all I want to do is ensure one of you is definitely the culprit. What do? Well, I march over to the study and I install a pair of curtains onto the windows. Now, nobody can see anything. During that time, I switch the coffee cup for one without poison, take the curtains off, and leave. Nobody can know for sure what I've done except me, and I know I've just made Orion the culprit. Except I didn't, since I don't know that Orion didn't actually use poison. Anyway, now I'm Jennifer. I've just heard about Elliot's shenanigans with the curtains, and I've got a brilliant idea. No, hang on, I get the point. Playing with another packet of sugar now. But you just gave me a solution, didn't you? What if I just cover the window whenever I'm in the room? It's reasonable to assume everyone would do the same thing, right? Especially when they get the report that I'd done it. Sure, I agreed. It's only half the problem. It's not just a problem of being seen from the window. It's not? That's just one possible way of looking into the room. There's nothing stopping anyone from setting up some of their own cameras in the study beforehand. The issue then remains. Someone can always see whatever's happening in the room. Why didn't you just open with that? I coughed. It hadn't occurred to me. But the point is, okay. She slammed the table again. Okay. I get it. By this point, I realized pretty much everyone was staring at us. It seemed that the waitress was trying to decide, or rather had probably already decided, how to tell us to leave. I wondered to what extent we'd been overheard. Maybe someone had been so freaked out they'd called the cops. Sam stood up. Need to think, she said, resigned. We don't have a lot of time. So let's meet again tomorrow. I really think, I decided to try again, that the odds are heavily stacked against the killer. The best strategy is to... I'm taking it all. You'll lose. She gazed down at me, with a strange glint in her eye. Not if I even the odds. I'm sorry for the pauses. I'm taking a lot of illegal hydrates because my throat is dry. Chapter 6. Don't take it too far. I opened my eyes to the sound of distant sirens. Not just drinking to hydrate, I literally just did. I just said that. And a stretch, okay. Alright. Getting that one out of my system quickly, because we're kind of in the middle of something. I opened my eyes to the sound of distant sirens. I had managed to give up smoking years ago. Yet as I was lying on my bed, The only thing on my mind was a cigarette. A giant cigarette. Size of a man. A kind of cigarette a giant could smoke. Kind of cigarette I could lift up with 2 hands and burn someone with. What funny ideas. I was decidedly more than a little buzzed by that point. For what it's worth, I'd given up drinking, too. Albeit this abstinence was still only a few months old. I decided I wouldn't blame myself for falling off the wagon. To be clear, I was never an alcoholic or anything. At least not as far as anyone could tell. But I was a far cry from a casual drinker. The Black House had left me with a sinking feeling in my stomach. Obviously, stomachs can't really sink by themselves, so I decided to sink myself entirely, by drowning in nothingness. The nothingness was good. It made me numb. It told me secrets. It showed me that there was still a bright side to life. Sam was making my stomach sink again. What else could I do? Kill Lloyd Stevens myself, I guess? It was something that had crossed my mind back at the cafe when I'd realized just how lax the rules were. But bringing it up would have probably agitated Sam to no end, so I decided against it. The loophole was simple, and pretty obvious. It was never stated that the killer had to be one of the 4 members of the household. Now that I'd known about the game, I could theoretically slip into the penthouse and commit the murder myself. In fact, I could have brought my own detective along just to make sure I won. Still, I would have faced the exact same challenges as the others, if not more so. During the murder, everyone would see a stranger killing Lloyd. Wearing a disguise or covering my face wouldn't have helped, since when the detectives showed up, they would have found a name they did not recognize on the list of people going to the study. The culprit would have been fairly obvious. Theoretically, though, I could have changed my name to Orion or Elliot. Maybe then I could have appeared as Orion or Elliot on the list of people going to the study? Of course, that was ridiculous, since whoever was compiling that list was unlikely to know what name I went by anyway. Nor did I know that they would only be using first names. Who wants to be going around called Orion, anyway? More sirens. Firefighters? There was another flaw with my plan. The legality. According to Sam, Lloyd had the 4 signed something that excused him of the legal consequences of his murder. I had signed no such thing, so anyone besides the 4 was likely to be on the hook. I sighed, trying to pull myself out of bed. Still, the idea of intervening by myself didn't sound too bad. There was a rule that said only 1 person besides Lloyd was allowed in the study at any given point. If I got into the study before anyone else, I could stop the murder from happening altogether. But why would I have gone that far to begin with? I didn't know the man. And greedy as she was, Sam had a point. It was his choice, wasn't it? Still. The idea by itself wasn't too bad. If I dashed into the study before anyone else, I could have used his leverage, couldn't I? Since me staying in there indefinitely would have meant that everyone lost, I could have said something like, if you want me to leave the room, then make a contract with me saying I'll get 5% of the winner's earnings. Everyone would have gone along with it. I would have had no choice. Killers were not allowed to share their fortune, but there was nothing stopping them sharing it with me. I wasn't a killer, after all. And 5% wouldn't have been too bad in the grand scheme of things, right? At that point, it wouldn't have mattered who won. At least not to me. The sirens weren't letting up. Hell of a fire, then. And I thought about my giant cigarette. Of course, I didn't have the spine to actually go and hold the game hostage. Even if I'd gotten them to make a contract with me, they could have claimed it was made under duress after the fact. Not to mention that they had the other 95%. I'm sure they could use a smidgen of that to kill me later. just for making things difficult. As I reached for my phone to check the time, my doorbell rang. Did I order food? I figured I must have. Groggily, I stumbled into the living room. The doorbell rang again. I'm coming, jeez. I looked through the peephole, but my vision was too blurry to make out the person on the other end. Screw it. I reached for the lock. Chapter 7. Don't Talk About the Black House, Part 2. Perhaps surprisingly, when I came to, in the bed with Monday, I still remembered what she said. It was the middle of the night, but I was curious. Had she really seen something in the hole? She wasn't one to joke about this kind of stuff, no matter the amount of alcohol in her blood. Phone in hand, I tiptoed my way downstairs. The house creaked unsteadily, as did the front door. The front door? Yes, the front door. It was open. The wind gently carried it, making it creak. One of us must have forgotten to close it, I reasoned. But why would we have opened it? Don't open the door. My head hurt. No matter what, don't open it. I shivered. I made my way down to the basement regardless. I wondered where the others were. Probably asleep upstairs. I considered going back and waking them up. But why? What was I expecting to find down here anyway? As I shined my light to where the hole was, I understood. I saw exactly what I was supposed to see. Him. The devil. He rose from the portal slowly. He had no horns. He had no wings. But I knew he was the devil. First came the eyes. Those could not have been human eyes. Then came his mouth. I could see his teeth glistening in my light. Then came the torso. It looked larger than the holy, and it manifested these. So slowly did he ascend that I realized he must have been toying with me. Like a beast, waiting for the right chance to pounce his prey. You've been waiting for me. You've been waiting for me all my life. Now he was going to get me. He was going to get all of us. This wasn't a portal to hell. It was just a hole. It was a hole made for humans. Screaming, I dropped my phone and ran upstairs. I don't know if he followed me. It didn't seem that way. Of course not, though. He was the devil. Why would he need to run? He found me once. He would find me again. I couldn't see a thing. Stumbled and fell within the void. Crawling, gasping, screaming. I only know that I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Where's the front door? Oh, where would I run? We were no longer on Earth. The whole house was now in hell. Was that not obvious? Darkness. Darkness was my only hope. I reached out to it, and it embraced me. It showed me the way, wrapped itself around me, let me burrow deep within it. I shut my eyes, and I waited for the end. Yet, the end never came. I awoke in a kitchen cupboard. Half dazed, but still conscious of the night before, I crawled out. It was morning. Light seeped into the black house. Quiet, quiet black house. I shivered. It must have been the darkness. A hallucination. There was no devil. I was alive. I was okay. As if to prove it to myself, I went down to the basement. The only thing left was the hole. No devil. Relieved, I made my way upstairs. Monday wasn't in the bed I'd left her in. Well, that was fine. The others must have headed out. Might even gotten concerned if they couldn't find me. How was I going to explain it to them? I'd never live it down. Especially not if they'd gone and called the cops. I hoped not. I went to the other bedroom. Adrian and Esther were there. Adrian was on the bed, wearing a red shirt. Esther was slumped against the edge of the bed, something sticking out of her chest. I said, yawning. You guys go... I stopped. I had to wake up. What was in Esther's chest? It was a knife. She'd been stabbed. Oh shit, Esther! I looked over to Adrian. His shirt wasn't red. That was just the blood running from his slit throat. Adrian! What? It was a prank. Obviously, it must have been a prank. What else could it have been? Why wasn't I laughing, though? Why weren't they? Why weren't they moving at all? Not even their chests. I screamed. How many times had I screamed in that house by that point? It didn't matter. Didn't care. I had to get out of there. I had to save myself. Where was Monday? Was she okay? Did the devil get her too? The devil? There was no such thing. I had to get out of there. I ran downstairs and gripped the handle of the front door. Don't open it. I opened it. And I saw her. Monday's lifeless corpse, dangling from the front porch. The noose hung firmly from the ceiling. The chair was at her feet. There was blood on her shirt. She'd already turned pale. I don't remember much of what happened afterwards. It still comes and goes in fragments. Police came. They questioned me. I gave my statement. They gave me a psychiatric evaluation. I know I didn't do too well on that. I know they suspected me. I know. But they didn't have anything to charge me with. Especially after I'd told them what Monday said about everyone dying. As it turned out, I hadn't been the only one. She'd told it to Esther, too. Esther put it in her journal. In her handwriting. Nobody could know the future. So Monday must have done it. In a moment of madness, she had killed Adrian and Esther. After she couldn't find me, she committed suicide on the porch. That was the conclusion the world came to. It was the conclusion I had to accept. I still don't know years later how word got around that I was involved. The police kept my name out of everything. I never made any kind of appearance, public or otherwise. With the culprit being dead, what trial was supposed to take place? I probably have nobody to blame but myself. When I got to college, I'd shared what happened with a few people I trusted. Obviously, I shouldn't have. The story spread. At some point, it changed, like all good ghost stories do. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was the person who'd solved the entire thing. As if there had been anything to solve. I was no detective. I wasn't smart. I was just a coward. All because I couldn't find the strength to... Chapter 8. Don't open the door. Don't open it. The words ran through my mind. I thought about Monday. I thought about Adrian. I thought about Esther. I thought about the Black House. The devil. The devil. Devil had come for me. Don't open it. She'd tried to warn me. But I was too stupid to realize it in time. I opened the door. And now the devil was strangling me. No. There was no such thing as the devil. Devil hadn't killed my friends. Monday did. She was a human being. This was a human being. A human being was on top of me, in my living room, strangling the life out of me. For reasons I didn't understand and couldn't understand. Except I could. It was the game. It was the stupid game. One of the rules of it had been that the prospective killers couldn't hurt each other, but such protection wasn't extended to the detectives. Someone must have been wanting Sam and me at that cafe and followed me home. If her detective was dead, she'd have no standing in the game. Even if she tried getting a new one in the short term, the fact that they were going this far to kill me as early as now was a show of strength. They'd do the same thing with the next one, and the next one after that. My life didn't matter. I wasn't Lloyd Stevens. I was nobody. I didn't need to sign anything to kill me. I had written my life off to them the day I was born. My vision was dimming. I could feel the drool running down my chin. I was done for. What a pathetic way to go. Best I could hope for at that point was not pissing myself. Was this what Monday felt? As the life drained out of her, did she snap out of her madness, if only for a moment, and felt regret? Did she know that the world would only remember her as a murderer? Did she know I would remember her as one too? I thought she said I would go on to do something terrible. Did she realize she was wrong about that too? I was dying the terrible thing I'd go and do. Whatever it was, she'd said I would enjoy it. Am I enjoying this? Is this what I'd secretly wanted all along? No. I didn't want to die. Greed was proof of that. 5%. 5%. 5%. It wasn't my fault I was dragged into this. I didn't deserve to die. She called me. She goaded me into it. 5%! Oh, why couldn't I just explain that? I raised my hands to the figure's face. My vision grew dark. Just needed to make them understand. 5%. I placed my palms on their cheek. They flinched but did not relent. 5%. I made them understand. I made them understand what was at stake. And then... I died. At least I was certain I'd died. I must have. There was no other way to explain how I found myself waking up on the floor of my apartment. Someone who had put so much strength into strangling me could not have made a mistake and let me live. I was a walking corpse. Never mind that I could barely walk. By the time I got to my knees, I realized I wasn't alone. Lying next to me was the body of an old man. The grey comb-over told me as much as the loose skin. Still, he was dressed rather smartly. Turtleneck and khakis. His eyes were bloody. Or rather, the place where his eyes should have been were bloody. I looked at my hands. My thumbs were covered in blood. These, no doubt. This, then, had been my attacker? Had I saved myself? Heh. I genuinely hadn't thought I had it in me. Crawling over to him, I checked his pulse, then searched his pockets for answers. If this was some kind of professional assassin, I figured the chances of them having ID were low. Oh. Oh, no. This, however, was not a professional assassin. This was Ryan Stevens. Oh, no. I understood. Oh, no. I finally understood the extent of evil lurking within this damn family. Oh, no. I knew what I had to do. Chapter 9. Don't let it show. Exhausted, I had trudged my way to Crisgard Boulevard. It was the night after, and I'd barely gotten any sleep. Poor of a criminal as I was, I dealt with Orion's body the best I could. It was inevitably going to come to ruin me, but for the time being, my best move was to keep the entire incident under wraps. I had an appointment with Sam. She'd invited me to the penthouse of the Tristler Tower, the place where the murder would be taking place. Getting to the boulevard had been easy enough. Getting to the tower was a whole different story. The entire area was all but cordoned off. Fire trucks, ambulances, police, reporters. They'd all gathered for a show. Even though, as an onlooker told me, the show had already ended. The hotel next to Tristler Tower had all burned up. 4 dead, 17 injured. Initial reports suggested a freak electrical failure. Those closer to the fringe were thinking it made more sense as a case of arson. Oddly, so was I. I don't know anything about it, Sam told me the moment I stepped into the apartment. I swear. Did it look to the side of the building where your dad's study is? I asked. I had no patience for this anymore. Did it? Yeah. She shrugged. It did. But it wasn't me. 4 dead. I know. 17 injured. It wasn't me! I grabbed her by the collar. You said you'd even the odds. What did that mean? What did that mean? She pushed me away. Not burning the entire building down. Now, let's all settle down. I hadn't even noticed the other presence in the apartment. Last I heard, it was an electrical failure. I suggest we treat it as such. The man was in his late 50s, but undeniably good shape. There was a certain aloof look in his eye. The confidence of a man who believed he could see through you the moment he saw you. Maybe I was just that transparent. I hoped not. Nice to meet you, he extended his hand to me. I'm Lloyd. Lloyd Stevens. The man. The myth. The legend. The dead man. No wonder he felt comfortable enough to be dressed in a t-shirt and jeans. He owned the place. He owned everything. I felt certain he owned me. The assistant to his daughter's murder plot. His hand still hung in the air. I took it. 2 zombies shook hands. I understand you're Sam's detective, he grinned. Or should I consider you the moral conscience? Your daughter shouldn't need to pay to have one of those, I pointed out. Oh, it's easy to lose sight, he said simply. Especially in the situation she's in. You mean the situation you engineered? Let her low whistle. Ooh, got me there. Oh, but that's part of life, right? I might be the one dishing it, but tough odds are always rearing their heads. You think with all the money you have, she'll be in a position where she's forced to kill? What I think, Sam interjected, is that we should just get to the plan. I turned to her. Plan? She nodded. Dad's agreed to help out. After all, Lloyd said, it wasn't against the rules, and I appreciated the gamble. I grimaced. What's the scheme exactly? Well, she sighed, obviously happy we were finally talking shop. Here's the thing, right? No matter what we do, we're always in a losing position. But at the end of the day, victory comes down to one thing and one thing only. Once Dad dies, the official judge of everything that happens after, from who gets the kill to the detective's deduction, is whoever's watching the live stream, right? The person in Hong Kong. So now I'm thinking, what if I don't need to kill Dad? What if what happens on Friday doesn't matter at all? What if all I have to do is convince the person in Hong Kong I did it? So I looked through our penthouse. I found all of the cameras in Dad's study. I realized that they don't directly stream footage to Hong Kong. Instead, they first send the video footage to one of Dad's offices. And only from there it's being transmitted as a live stream. Then I got an idea. What if I faked the entire thing to make it look like I, and only I, did it? She turned to Lloyd. I got Dad here to sit in his study tonight. We acted out me putting something in his coffee, him drinking it immediately, and then dying. I also got 3 other people that look like Orion, Jennifer, and Elliot to go into the study and do nothing. We took a bunch of different takes. One where he's still alive, and one where he's dead. Here's the idea then. On the night of the murder, I'll have someone in the office to intercept any and all live stream footage. Whenever someone walks in, instead of the person in Hong Kong seeing what's actually happening, we just play one of the pre-recorded takes. Remember that we already basically established that the optimal strategy is poison here. Even with the hotel across the street burned down, it's still the optimal strategy. Whoever burned it will probably realize soon enough that it's possible to just peek into the office by video. So, let's say that Orion walks into the study first and poisons Dad's coffee. My man at the office building intercepts that footage and instead transmits footage of Orion entering, talking with my dad, and leaving to Hong Kong. And I walk in and just talk with Dad. The person at the office intercepts Dad and instead plays the scene of me killing Dad to Hong Kong. Hong Kong now believes I'm the culprit. Whoever enters after me in reality will just result in one of the takes we took with Dad's dead body being played to Hong Kong. That way, the list of people entering the study is consistent with what Hong Kong has seen, nobody can accuse me since I genuinely did nothing, and I win because everyone gets it wrong as far as Hong Kong is concerned. But that's basically cheating, right? I pointed out. Before Lloyd could interject, I continued, okay, sure, I guess it's technically not against the rules. But wouldn't the person in Hong Kong inevitably realize they've been swindled? If the others have set up their own cameras in the study, wouldn't they have video footage proving what really happened? Couldn't they just use that to reveal the trick? Reveal the trick to who? Sam grinned. They don't know who the person in Hong Kong is. How are they going to get it to them? Besides, remember the very last rule. Once the results are decided, they can't be overturned. So even if the jig was up, there's nothing anyone can do about it. You can't tell me they'd suspect anything was wrong until it was too late. Come on. Admit it. It's perfect. I'm not sure it is. I wasn't the smartest, but there were a lot of ways this could go sideways. What about the deductions, for example? If one of the detectives, or more, starts bringing up things the person in Hong Kong didn't see, it would be clear to the person in Hong Kong that something was wrong. And that's why, Sam declared, I left nothing to chance. I blinked. Ah, you're going to fake the deduction segments too. Bingo, she beamed. I've already done it, actually. All of the detectives, their entire investigation, all of their deductions, I have it all recorded. I didn't even need to get stand-ins or actors for them, since it's not like the person in Hong Kong would know or care about who they were. I thought about it. Okay. In that case, why am I here exactly? Oh, well, she glanced at her dad. That's the awkward part, I guess. I don't really need you anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for all the work you've done. Our discussion yesterday was good. But I'm the one who basically did all the legwork, right? And this idea was basically mine, so? Lloyd raised his hand, smiling. Bringing you here was actually my idea. I wanted to make sure you had a clear understanding of what all this really is. How important it is to all of us. And how important it is to not go to the public with it. Which is why he pulled a piece of paper seemingly out of nowhere. I'd like you to just briefly discuss the matter of a small NDA would like you to sign. Just the basic stuff, Sam said. This whole, Lloyd waved his hand, game, your participation in it, any and all discussions about Sam or her family, that kind of stuff. Pretty standard. And, I poked, if I refuse, that's... Lloyd's smile was unwavering. Would simply not be in your best interest at all. He handed me the paper. Hey, it's nothing personal, Sam told me. It's just that, 5% is a bit much, especially since, I didn't do anything. Right. Except, as I recalled, that had been the idea pitched to me. Me not needing to really do anything to get the money. Tough break, Lloyd laughed. I have to say, though, I'm probably just as surprised as you are. I hadn't expected Sam to come up with something like this. Thanks, Sam looked down. I guess. With the NDA signed, Lloyd was more than willing to personally escort me out. I hear you're fairly smart, he finally said when we reached the elevator. Do you think I'm a bad person? Yes? What did you think I was gonna say? You've literally caused 4 people to die already. I don't see how you could put that on me. I certainly didn't do it. He grinned. But, alright, that's cartoonishly evil now. Look, I get where you're coming from. If it's any consolation, whoever did it was clearly not the brightest of my bunch. They're the most likely to end up with nothing. So it's only a matter of time before they answer for what they've done. And you? Will you answer for it? Sure. I'm the one dying, remember? I don't know if I can even call you good or bad at this point, honestly. You're just crazy. Oh, not very politically correct of you, I must observe, he laughed. How about you go fuck yourself? Let me tell you something. He pressed the button to call the elevator. I knew a guy. Rich, powerful, successful. The exact kind of scumbag you think I am. One day he called me up and told me that he woke up in his hotel and heard the voice of God. It was like, what did he say? A weird, faint crackle. Like a Giga counter. Brrr, brrr. He couldn't figure out where it was coming from, so he just decided it was God. The more he listened, the clearer the message got. He said he was calling me to say goodbye, before he went and jumped out of the window. Now, What's the moral of the story here? It depends, I said. Was he actually hearing God? He laughed again. That right there, though, is the moral. Even if it had been, he shouldn't have been dumb enough to listen to him. That, he said, is what separates a normal person from a loony. And I'm no loony. Got it? The elevator doors opened. Got it? He asked again. Oh yeah, I said, stepping in. I think I got all of that. Chapter 10. Don't bring the house down. Hi, I used to be Sam's detective. I know everything she's planning. Want to cut me in for 5%? It was certainly an opener, and one I felt would be enough to catch the attention of Jennifer Stevens. We met up in the same cafe I'd met Sam. I figured she wouldn't approve of the selection, but she proved to have surprisingly little royal blood in her. If anything, she seemed at ease in a setting like this. If I hadn't known about her previous line of work, I would have made the mistake of letting my guard down. She was a shark through and through. And these were her waters. I was her type of prey. And she was smelling blood. Even when she swallowed you whole, though, she wanted you to feel as comfortable as possible. You know, pain and all. 5% is a bit much, don't you think? She crossed her legs. If I don't tell you, nobody will. If nobody does, you'll lose. I'd say 5% is a decent investment. She nodded. Interesting. I assume you'd want that in writing? We're a little short on time. Today's Thursday. I don't know how I'd get a lawyer to draft something like that up. Or how we'd measure the usefulness of your information. Well, she looked at her phone. Oh, sorry, just a sec. Her face darkened as she began texting. Sorry, hang on. She brought the phone to her ear. Yeah, I know, well, have you heard from him? It's the chance they picked him up already. Can they trace it back to me? How much does he... You said they could... I see. Okay. Right. Fine. Bye. She threw the phone back onto the table. Sorry about that, she smiled. Where were we? I can imagine this is pretty tough on you. I mean, even before all of this, I heard you had quite a lot to deal with. Or that insider trading business. Oh, I don't know. For his defense team, him dying's probably the best thing they could have hoped for. Yeah, that bad, huh? I crossed my arms. How about this, then? See, 5% was what Sam originally pitched me. The longer and longer I'm involved in all this, the more I'm convinced none of you will actually win. If anything, the more complicated you make your schemes, the more I'm convinced Lloyd will survive whatever you've got cooking for him. She raised her brow. Are we that dumb? No, you're too smart for your own good. That's why you'll end up sabotaging each other to the point of failure. Even if you kill Lloyd, the second most probable scenario is that you'll all still miss out on the money. So the way I see it, you shouldn't be trying to stake 5% from any of you, because I don't think any of you will win. My best case scenario would be then to assume Lloyd will somehow survive. That's where I should be hedging my bets. She leaned across the table. What are you suggesting? We'll do a trade. I'll tell you what Sam's up to. In return, you give me the dirt you have on Lloyd in the SEC case. If he dies, it's worthless to me. But if he lives, and I'm betting he would, I can use his leverage against him. It won't matter to you, since he'll have disinherited you by that point anyway. We could even arrange that I cut you in on whatever deal I make if it'll let you feel more at ease. She pursed her lips. But what if I was as cynical as you? Couldn't I do the same thing? You could, I admitted. But you're not. You're not the type of woman to be satisfied with pennies on the dollar. You want it all, don't you? To do that, you'll absolutely need to know what Sam's doing. That's what it comes down to. And how, she said carefully, am I supposed to know this isn't part of some scheme of hers? That you won't just feed me garbage. Because, he said candidly, what she's planning is so good that it's objectively the best way to win the game. Her eyes narrowed. Okay. You have my attention. Chapter 11. Don't win. Hi, I used to be Sam's detective. I know everything she's planning. Want to cut me in for 5%? No, Elliot said, not lifting his head from my chart. Says here they found a hemangioma in your liver last year. You getting that checked up regularly? We were sitting in the examination room of the clinic you worked for. It hadn't occurred to me that giving this man access to my entire medical history might not have been the smartest move. Or letting him undress me, for that matter. Trust me. You'll lose if you don't know what she's planning, I told him. That's fine. Losing is fine? He shrugged. Why wouldn't it be? Got everything I need? It certainly doesn't include my father or his money. I've already won. You're not even the least bit interested in trying. He snorted. You know, I'm pretty disappointed how everyone just assumes trying won't hurt. Why does nobody question anything beyond the initial premise? Even if I were absolved of all wrongdoing and trying to kill my own father, the fact would still be that I killed him. I expected to go through life carrying that. Especially if I fail. The would-be murderer doctor. There's a great ring to it, I'm sure. Well, besides, are any of us in any decent position to win? I don't think so. I was intrigued at first, I'll give him that, but just look at the rules. They're too loose. There's a million stupid things you can do, and they're all legal, and they all break the game. I said as much to them, and they, for some reason, took that as a good thing. What, are they stupid? The thing about games, even morbid ones, is that to make them interesting, you need to actually think them out. This is half-assed. Father didn't just put any thought into any aspect of this. That's why participating is a waste of time. Simple as that. So, what are you gonna do tomorrow? I asked. I mean, I'll be at the penthouse, he admitted. I'm morbidly curious to see how everything plays out. I won't be trying to win. I see. He sighed. Does that answer your question? I would say it does. Great. Now, he turned his attention back to the chart. About your hemangioma. Having survived the checkup, without need to take my clothes off, I made my way back to Tristler Tower. I asked the receptionist to call up the penthouse. Please tell Mr. Stevens that I'd like to see him immediately, I said. I have good reason to believe his son will kill him tomorrow. Final chapter. Don't play detective. I must admit, Lloyd said, staring at me behind the desk of his study. I'm a bit surprised you've come back. Elliot is going to kill me. And here I was thinking that was the point. I groaned, let's cut the bullshit, okay? You have absolutely no intention of dying. This entire game is a charade. Way to mess with the people in your life who have grown dependent on you. Way to exert control of them. You don't listen to the voice of God. You don't listen to any voice. You're your own God. And you're showing your omnipotence. Frankly, it should have been obvious from the get-go. But with the exception of Elliot, nobody questioned things beyond their initial premise. First of all, you can't just sign a contract excusing you from killing someone. The thing can be presented as assisted suicide, sure, but it doesn't change the fact that assisted suicide is illegal in most countries for a physician to do, and it's especially illegal if you're just a person. Second is the fact that you had me sign an NDA. Not Sam, you. For a man intent on dying and not caring what happens, you seem pretty intent on covering up this game's existence. And of course there's the game itself. It's not thought out at all. It's nonsense. There's no reasonable way to win at all besides flat out breaking the rules. Which is exactly what Sam had basically done and something which you had no problem with. What was going to happen tonight? Well, I imagine the moment someone showed up to deal a killing blow, you would have stopped them. And told them the same thing I'm telling you now, right? That it's all a fluke. They wouldn't be getting away with it even if they killed you. At the very least, they certainly wouldn't be getting any of your money. That's why you locked yourself in your study. Not for their convenience or to make the game more structured, but to place yourself in an environment you controlled and stop them from killing you before they found out the truth. All of this was to see one thing and one thing only. How far they'd go. As it happens, pretty far. But here's the thing. Someone else already had a pretty good idea of how far they'd go. He saw through the game immediately, decided to use it against you, and the rest of his family. Here's the thing that I realize pretty clearly now, and the thing Elliot already knew. You're all pretty dumb. At the very least, you're very susceptible to suggestion. Elliot approached each of the other would-be killers and told them he had no interest in money or the game. His argument must have sounded rational, because it was. He then casually mentioned a different idea on how to approach the game to each of them. From that point on, each person became an unwitting pawn in his plan. First was Sam. He was the one who came up with the idea of faking the entirety of the evening with the fake recordings. You were even surprised that she'd come up with something like that on her own. Well, she didn't. He deliberately had her make a recording in which she explicitly implicated herself as the culprit. In any other context but the game, it would have been disastrous. And that was exactly how she would use it. Tonight, he was going to poison you before you ever went to your study. She wasn't playing the game, so why should he have cared? He would never even walk in. You would never even get to see the look on his face when you told him none of it was real. You'd sit behind your desk, the poison would kick in, and you would just topple over. Of course, none of the cameras you hid around the study actually do anything, do they? There is no associate in Hong Kong. No livestream proxy going through one of your office buildings or whatever. That was all stuff Elliot made up to convince Sam of the plan. In truth, the only footage is the one she herself had made. The moment the police showed up, that was what they'd see. And who was going to believe her it was faked? The actors she used? No, they could be bribed into silence. You just dangle the word 5% in front of them and they'll do anything for you. By the time it was all over, Elliot would have enough money in his pocket to dispose of them just by raising a finger. The one issue he had was a potential risk of someone seeing what was actually happening in the study. The view was wide open since the study doesn't have any curtains. What would happen if someone testified that something different from what was seen in the recording happened? It would aid Sam's argument that she staged the whole thing. Worse yet, what if there had been a witness who saw the staging itself take place? He had to get rid of it. Which is why he tipped Jennifer off about the possibility of detectives being able to see the study from across the street. He convinced her that her chances of winning were lowered as long as that option was on the table. And he told her how to take it off. By burning it to the ground. Now obviously this is where Jennifer's own lack of thought shows. Whoever set the hotel on fire was likely going to be caught. Not by investigation, then by sheer guilt. Killing 4 people isn't something you can just sleep off. When they were caught, they would inevitably pinpoint Jennifer as the mastermind, resulting in her going to jail. In fact, I suspect she's being arrested as we speak. The final snag in the plan was me. Since he had put the idea of recording a fake version of the night into Sam's head at least a few days before Friday, there was a danger that she could have told me about it and possibly even had me participate in it. Sam's 5% might have seemed better to me than your 5%, so I had to be gotten rid of. That was fine. I was always going to be eliminated. That was why he had told Sam the lie that I had solved the Black House murders. He was familiar with the case, for good reason, and he knew how to utilize his knowledge of it perfectly. She needed a detective, and he had one for her. Then he approached Orion and tipped him off that I was Sam's detective. For reasons that I won't go into now, he knew that Orion's immediate reaction to that was going to be to kill me. And if he did, fantastic. Sam would have been out of a detective and a person who could have testified to the fake recording. More importantly, Elliot could now secretly let the police know what Orion had done, leading to his arrest. Of course, Orion is an old man. There was a non-zero chance that between the two of us, I'd end up killing him. That was fine, too. If Orion had disappeared, Elliot could simply implicate me in the murder. I'd lose credibility when trying to back Sam's story up. The end result of all of this? You, Lloyd Stevens, die. Sam, Jennifer, and Orion are all in jail. The one person who had consistently shown no interest in the game, Elliot, walks off scot-free. Who gets the inheritance? What do you think? Is that something you had in mind when you came up with all this? He stared at me. Surprised, perhaps. Impressed, too, perhaps. But panicking? No. Angry? Absolutely not. Amused? Undeniably. Well, he said. Obviously not. He laughed. I didn't think he had it in him. Bravo. He leaned back in his chair. Well done, well done. I suppose I owe you, he chuckled. 5%? I shook my head. No. You owe me your life. Oh, do I now? Sure. I'm going to take it now, if you don't mind. He blinked. You're going to kill me? I'm too stupid to get away with murder. But I can destroy you. Oh, can you now? Sure, I've already done it. Your wife, being so invested in your game, made a fatal error and gave me all I needed to destroy whatever defense you might have had for your SEC trial. Whatever they fine you for that will probably end up tripling whatever you might have made from it. That's no chump change. Given how greedy you are, you'll probably have to start moving assets to offshore accounts, effectively making the money unreachable to Sam and Elliot. Which is good enough for me as far as punching those two is concerned. And who are you gonna hand that to? You even know whose door to knock on? Sure, I said. The police. What did you think I did after Orion tried to kill me? They came up with most of the plan, admittedly. Good of you to ask about Orion, by the way. He's alive. Blind, but alive. He was actually in a pretty chatty mood when he woke up at the hospital. Now that his eyes were gone, you could say he got a new perspective on life. The main question was, why had he attacked me? Clenched my fist. Of course I knew the answer even before he told us the full story. I sniffed. Before he murdered my friends in cold blood. Actual final chapter, ignore what I said earlier. Don't fear the Reaper. Orion's marriage had hit the rocks. One thing led to another, and as things do, the rock eventually hit her. In the side of her head. With him holding the rock. He had to hide the body. Being a banker, he looked through abandoned properties that his bank owned. There was a perfect little dilapidated house just out of the way. It was perfect. It was a lot of work, but he managed to dig a hole in the basement and hide her. Once it turned out he wouldn't be seeing any of her money, he came crawling to you. He knew you. He knew how obsessed with control you were. So he gave you something to tide you over. Make sure he was always your thrall until the end of time. He told you what he'd done. He told you where the body was. And what did you do? What else? You decided to fuck with him. You bought the house. You dug the body out. And then you kept digging. You kept digging for hundreds of feet. Because you needed to create an attraction. You remodeled the house. Painting it black from all sides. And then you've spread the rumor about the house with the portal to hell. Then you waited for him to find out about it. When he did, he panicked. Having no idea you were behind it, the one thing he had to know was, is the hole where the body was? Did they find the body? He went out to the house one night. He used his old key to sneak into the front door. Given that the house was covered in complete blackness, there was no way he could have spotted the signs of life. No way he could have known that 4 teenagers were staying at the house that night. He crept into the basement. He saw the hole. It was the hole. Right place. Right there. How had they not found the body? It didn't make any sense. He descended into the hole to check. Was his memory playing tricks on him? Was it not the place where he'd buried her? Or was the body maybe still down there and nobody had noticed? Had she turned to dust by some natural process? Obviously he found nothing. He said it gave him little relief. Then something terrible happened. As he was climbing back up, someone saw him. Before he had a chance to explain, the figure ran. Had they seen his face? He couldn't be sure. He was scared. If he was caught here, he wouldn't be able to explain himself for trespassing. He had to think fast. He had to get rid of all witnesses. Creeping through the house, he searched the bedrooms. In one, he found 2 teenagers sleeping on the bed. He slit the first one's throat. Second one woke up from the commotion and tried to run. He stabbed her in the chest. Before he had a chance to pull the knife out, he saw the third one, watching him from the doorway. She tried to run. She couldn't reach the front door in time. He strangled her. Figuring that she must have been the one to spot him in the basement, he strung her up on the porch, making it look like a suicide. A momentary act of madness. That was how the world would see it. And so it was. It was only later that he'd learned that someone else had been there. And survived. Because the police had never released my name, he was out of luck. But seeing as how they hadn't come knocking to his door either, he figured there were no witnesses left. Even so, if given the chance, he would have preferred to be sure. To get rid of that last witness. Elliot had given him that chance. Using his position as a doctor, he cross-referenced the people who had been taken to the hospital in the Black House's area around the time of the investigations, and people who attended the same high school as the victims. He had guessed, correctly, that I would have been given a psychiatric evaluation at some point. Lloyd rose from his seat. Shit. You're making all this up. I rose from mine. He's already signed his statements. I was there. No. Even the part where he told you about what he'd done. Even the part where you told him what your part in it was. No. I'm thinking the charge would be aiding and abetting. Yes, I just can't decide what'll carry the heavier charge. The fact that you knew Orion killed his wife? That you hid her corpse for him? Or the fact that you knew he killed 3 teenagers? Hey, Lloyd. Do you hear that? I looked to the window. He looked around. What? I raised my finger. It's kinda like a crackle? I grinned. Huh. It must be the voice of God. He stared at me. Yeah, Lloyd, I said. What do you think God is telling you to do now? That didn't gave me chills the first time I read it prior to the, when I was, testing to see if it would make good reading material, and it's given me chills tonight. It's an absolutely delightful story. Did you all enjoy it? I certainly hope you did, otherwise I'm gonna feel like I just wasted the last 2 hours. That was so good. Yay!
Water and water
Nana,
and
thank
water,
you for the hydrate.
Water and water and water, water, water and water and water, water, water and water and water, water.
And the stretch. Okay, let's go for real this time. Okay. So how did we all like that? I've said in the past, several times that I'm not a particularly big fan of the Danganronpa franchise, but I like games about, or like stories, I should say, about killing games in general. There's a structure to it, I mean, fundamentally speaking, mystery fiction in general is a game played between author and reader in an attempt to solve the mystery. And embracing the sort of gamey nature of the story, and the meat, as it were, is really where most of the best mysteries come from. So stories like this, where you have, I suppose you'd call it, rules, and real deep analysis of those rules and optimal play, and what people can do to manipulate other people's perception of the rules, that is my jam. That is my absolute shit. And this one hung together quite well. DWaM, you've done it again. Yeah. Yeah, I never did figure out how to end these streams. Anyway, who's... Hold on, let me turn this off. Who's online right now? Is it you? Is it me? Not them. We have 5 viewers and shit right now. I didn't expect the ending to go that way. I think that was kind of the point. Alright. You're sharing the wonderful story soon. No problem. No problem whatsoever. Okay, for some reason their stream did not show as live earlier, but I was looking through my recordings and they're back now, so we're going to be raiding Ubibi Ushi. So I've been putting this off for a while. I'll drop it and say hello. They're currently on a break, but according to the timestamps in their chat, they'll probably be back in a few minutes to be playing some Skyrim. Fairly predictable choice for a stream, but you know what? I can't blame them. Please treat them with all the respect and dignity you treated me with during this stream. And I will see all of you later. Probably. I'm pretty sure I'm streaming tomorrow. I don't remember my own schedules. That's why I write them down. Good night, everybody.